YouTube. It's Andrew back at Andrew's Academy, and this is the second video in our series. So in our last video, we'll just do a little recall section. So recall that we confirmed, right, that the derivative of e to the power of x in respect to x is just the same thing, right? This will just give us e to the power of x. And we said that these have magnificent values, and we went on and on telling you about this natural number, but how is it actually useful? So today we're going to be trying out a couple questions actually, and attempting to select a strategy to determine the value of the derivative. So in the first question, so given f at x is equal to 3 times e to the exponent x squared, right? Determine, so I'll just write that as a semicolon, determine the derivative at -1. Okay? And at first you may think, oh no, how am I ever going to answer this question? It looks so difficult, but no worry, that's what I'm for. So this 3 that you can see here, right, we know that that's a constant multiple, right? So let me just change colors. This 3 is going to stay out front, and he's a good guy, right? We won't have to involve him in any of our complex mathematics. So we confirmed in the last video e to the power of x, right, which you can see here. Yes, this value is x squared, but the derivative of e to the power of x will give you e to the power of x, right? So if we take the derivative of e to the power of x squared, this is very similar to what we have done in the past with the chain rule. And what we do to solve these questions is that we take this variable up here, right? And you can replace this with any letter you like. I'm going to call this w, because w doesn't get involved in math enough, in my opinion. So we're going to take this, right? If it's just e to the w and e to the x, very similar in idea, right? E to the w. And then in the chain rule, we need to recall when we have something that we replace, you always need to take the derivative of what that is, right? So the derivative of x squared is just 2x. But we know that w was not in our original function because we say it here, right? This is the function in respect to x. So what we do, we kindly replace w with what we had previously. So this is just going to end up like this times 2x. So now we can freshen this up. 3 and 2x can be multiplied together. And let me pick a final color to wrap it all up to signify the success of the completion of this question. We'll multiply this together, 6x times e to the power of x squared. And don't attempt to multiply 6x by e, because e is your base, and you can't really multiply something by a base, because then after you'll just get into some very, very sticky situations. Okay, so now we'll finish off the question, and if we go back here, they want us to solve it at -1, right? So if we take this number that we have now, this derivative, right, f at prime at -1 is equal to 6 times -1 times e to the power of -1 squared. So let's do as much as in our head as we can. 6 times -1 is -6 times your base. -1 squared, -1 times -1 is just going to be 1. Right? So our final answer, f prime at -1, whoopsies, f prime at -1 is just going to be -6 times your natural number. Because of the exponent 1, it doesn't really matter. Okay? Wasn't that exciting? Now we're going to do some more. Our next question, okay, is going to be to evaluate, okay? So given the function, okay, given e to the exponent of 3x. Find the derivative. So we're just going to solve for the derivative. Okay? This is an easier question than the first one, believe it or not, because you'll see in a second. So if we write this right away, we know, right, e to any power, right, this power will replace with whatever letter you'd like, w. We know that this is just going to be e to the power of w. If we take the derivative of the exponent, we'll get 3, right? Does that make sense? If we have this here, we know that e to the power of w is just, when we take its derivative, is going to be e to the power of w. But what we forgot to take into account is the exponent. And the exponent, the derivative of the exponent, I should say, is just going to be 3. We know that we can't leave w because the question is in respect to x, so we'll just replace w with what it equals, which is 3x. So we can bring this 3 up here, 3 times e to the power of 3x. Thank you everyone for joining me today. That's all we have for these types of questions. Feel free to explore and search for as many questions as you like about these. It's really good practice to get more and more comfortable. But before we conclude, I'll give you a general formula because I feel these are important for students to understand. So if f at x is equal to e to g at x, which is an example that we covered both here and over here, right? If this is equal to this, then, comma, the derivative is going to be equal to e to the g at x, which we have confirmed in both questions, times the derivative of the exponent. Thank you very much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it, and stay tuned for our next videos. Peace.